When we think of extreme wealth, our minds typically go to a very specific set of images. We picture private jets, fleets of luxury cars, and massive sprawling mansions. But those hyper-visible displays only represent a tiny fraction of the global wealthy. The vast majority of millionaires and billionaires look absolutely nothing like that. We can actually map the 10 distinct tribes of wealth on a visibility spectrum. On the far left, you have maximum visibility, the loudest, flashiest spenders. On the far right, you have total invisibility, wealth so quiet you'd never know it was there. Charting wealth this way reveals a harsh financial reality. The origin and speed of a fortune dictate the way it is managed and whether it survives the person who made it. On the far left of the spectrum sits new money. These are people who earned their fortunes within their own lifetime, often starting with nothing. For those experiencing extreme wealth for the very first time, mansions and luxury cars are common ways the fortune manifests. This chart shows the wealth trajectory of the crypto-rich, the most extreme modern version of new money. Notice the slow, gradual upward slope of traditional real estate or stock wealth compared to the violent, near-vertical spike of crypto. Fortunes that normally took 30 or 40 years to accumulate were suddenly being minted, and sometimes lost entirely in a matter of months. That same volatility applies to the celebrity rich. Actors, musicians, and entertainers earn wealth that arrives in sudden bursts from a hit album or a blockbuster film, rather than through slow, steady accumulation. The celebrities who actually keep their fortunes treat their fame purely as starting capital for tangible businesses. The valuation of Rihanna's Fenty Beauty brand reached several $billions, while her career music royalties represent a smaller fraction of her total net worth. Jay-Z executed this exact pivot, using his status as an entertainer to build a highly diversified corporate empire. For the groups on this far left side of the spectrum, extreme visibility is simply a byproduct of speed. Those fast-moving fortunes are highly vulnerable unless they are strategically converted into stable, lasting assets. Moving toward the center of the spectrum, we find the athlete rich. This wealth is defined by extreme urgency. A professional athlete's career is short, giving them a strict 10 to 15-year window of peak earning potential. LeBron James recognized this ticking clock early in his career. He used his on-court salary to fund a media and entertainment portfolio that eventually generated the majority of his total net worth. The tech rich also occupy this middle ground. Funders and coders built some of the largest fortunes in human history, outpacing the historic oil and railroad barons, yet they tend to live remarkably modestly compared to their net worth. You have men controlling global digital infrastructure while presenting themselves like entirely average citizens, wearing plain clothes and driving ordinary cars. Founders like Jeff Bezos built colossal wealth starting from a literal garage, focusing every resource on scaling the company rather than personal flash in those early days. This middle tier proves that extreme public fame, or having your product used by billions of people, does not require a flashy personal lifestyle to validate the wealth. When we cross over into the right side of the visibility spectrum, we find the real estate rich and the investor rich. These are groups defined by extreme patience. They don't think in years or quarters, they think in decades. Warren Buffett is the ultimate archetype of the investor rich. He never invented a product or wrote a line of code. He became historically wealthy simply by identifying great businesses and holding them for decades, while his money silently compounded in the background. This deep patience is also the hallmark of old money. Unlike new money, dynastic families buy quiet, lasting assets like land, fine art, and long-standing businesses. Their goal is never spending, it is preservation for the next generation. The Rockefellers are a classic American example of old money, actively preserving a vast fortune across multiple generations without the need for public display. The Vanderbilts operated on these exact same principles, building a foundational dynasty rooted in generational wealth preservation. But right next to old money sits a cautionary tale, the inheritor. This is someone who receives a massive transfer of wealth, but lacks the generational discipline of a dynasty. Without those ingrained financial habits, many inheritors lose their entire fortune rapidly. The deepest, most permanent wealth in the world is almost entirely invisible. Its primary function is intergenerational survival, proving that managing wealth is an entirely different skill set than making it. At the absolute furthest edge of the visibility spectrum is the quiet rich. Despite being totally invisible, they're the single most common type of rich person on the planet. These are completely ordinary-looking teachers, mechanics, and accountants. They drive used cars, they live in modest homes, and they clip coupons. No one around them has any idea how much money they have. This graph shows the results of a massive study of modern millionaires. Rather than relying on a sudden dramatic event, these individuals built hidden fortunes through the daily habit of saving and investing over 30 or more years. As you can see, the overwhelming majority of millionaires fall into this completely invisible saver-investor category, directly contradicting the cultural stereotype of the flashy billionaire. Getting rich can happen during a volatile crypto spike or slowly over 3 generations. The fortunes that survive share a universal trait. They exist independently of the desire to show off. The value of wealth lies in its preservation.